Budget 2009, brought to you by Deloitte.
The Finance Minister, Trevor Manuel, delivering his 13th budget speech today. Over a third of the overall stimulus package is headed to reduce poverty. But, Minister, let's start off with the global picture. In your speech today, you referred to the prospect of an economic cataclysm. Has that prospect changed after you heard the top stimulus package out of the US overnight?
I'm very worried because there's been the announcement of a series of stimulus packages. The top was voted, the $700 billion, some time ago, and it was urgent. It was subject to huge debate on the Hill, and the drawdown against it has actually not quite reached the 50% mark. Also, there was the gap because these things were so ill-considered that bank executives continue to take huge bonuses from the public purse. Then last week, President Obama announced a package of about $830 billion, and that is still being worked through in Congress. And now, I'm not quite sure whether the $2.5 trillion is inclusive or exclusive of those numbers that roughly add up to $1.5 billion. It's a huge number. It's a huge number, but the market actually has said that detail is absent. The market is making a judgment call. The administration is calling for trust. The market believes that it's entitled to more information than it has at the moment. And I think that this is something that will continue to play itself out. I see some of the other stimulus packages. Reducing the price of cars, paying so that people can buy cars in countries where roads are clogged up and where it may not be a sustainable feature, because cars are kind of funny things, because you don't replace your car like you replace the ice cream in your fridge. You drive a car for 4 or 5 years and then you replace it. So once you've done that, where does the next wave of consumers come from for the cars? And also, if countries don't have the systems in place to actually determine exactly how the bank should spend money and so on, it just means that there's this kind of manna from heaven that allows banks to do what they've been doing for a long time. We have to ensure that the reins are tightened. How tight? Whether it's all set at that $500,000 package cap that President Obama raised is going to be an interesting debate. But you cannot have a situation where bank executives continue to pay themselves stratospheric bonuses while they have been at the epicenter of the problem.
We'll get into more on those bonuses in just a little while. There is this fear that poorer countries like South Africa could end up being even more or harder done by as these stimulus packages kick in. Talk of protectionism. Do you share those concerns?
I'm very concerned about the risk of protectionism. It's something we raised just recently in Davos. And one of the issues is that to raise a flag in the United States that all the steel should be American steel, where these steel mills haven't been able to hold their own against more competitive mills, to now try and breathe life into them through a stimulus package is actually highly protectionist. Where do you draw the line? What are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to keep out everything from other countries and grow our own? You see, the problem is a curious one, because in the context of globalization, there's been the greater convergence of the economies of various countries. That's okay to buy and sell from. Sell to those that need what we produce, and to buy from those, and ensure that consumers have choice and price advantage is very important. But the wealthy countries who probably benefited the most from globalization can't shut the door now and then prevent market access for goods from the developing world. So that's one kind of direct impact. We must strengthen the multilateral bodies, clearly the World Bank, IMF especially, and the WTO, to ensure that you don't have retreat into protectionism. The other problem is that there's been the so-called flight to quality with funds leaving emerging market economies and returning to the euro, the pound, and the dollar zones. This was the epicenter of the problem. And if these countries can borrow exceedingly cheaply, it'll mean that, and given the very high levels of deficit that they need to fund now, the problem is that there's going to be very little left on the table in capital markets for countries like ourselves. We're really going to have to sing for our supper, and the spreads are going to widen. It's going to place the poor of the poor world at a serious disadvantage.
Now, much has been made of that particular irony, but let's move on and talk about today's budget. You put on record, and I'm quoting you here, that this is the most unbelievably honest position we can take in referring to this budget. What then do you say to those that call this an election budget, that you've merely towed the new party line, and that this is a very distinct jump to the left?
I don't know where the jump to the left is. You know, there's consistency. There's consistency in the policy positions we're taking. I think that I was also quite forthright in my address to Parliament in dealing with those issues that aren't a money problem. That's about efficiency, it's about oversight, it's about ensuring that the money buys more. That's not a pre-election type of statement, because it's not other people in government. I'm a National Executive Committee member of the ANC. I've been in government for almost 15 years. We have to take responsibility for this, and we're saying we can't go on. Let's use the crisis as an opportunity to try and deal with these issues. Similarly, there are issues that we've indicated we can't immediately afford. The rollout of the child support grant to 17 and 18 or 16 and 17-year-olds will have to wait a bit. We have to evaluate what the conditionalities look like, and we're saying it'll be premised on the basis of affordability. So we're saying to the ruling party as well, as you fight this election, the nature of the crisis actually casts a long shadow over what we try and do. It doesn't mean that we walk away from principles of dealing with the ravages of poverty. It's just that the phase-in might have to be a bit slower than what most of us would want.
Considering the huge level of uncertainty, you've even said that you loathe to make some firm commitments. You've put forward, in your opinion, what are your best estimates. Just how much leeway have you left yourselves if you need to reassess even before the medium-term budget process in 6 months' time?
Look, it's a very dynamic and fluid situation. We have to watch. We've actually been remarkable. I don't know that there are 5 countries that can do what we do, to have a budget at one point and to have one adjustment later in the year, and to provide that kind of predictability about the choices of government. There aren't many countries in the world, and we are one of the few countries that actually can do that. You don't gamble that away. It's hard earned, and I think it's an advantage you want to maintain.
Back in October, when you were calling for 3% growth in the South African economy, there were a great number of skeptics around at that time. And I've got to tell you, there's quite a few that are still questioning your number of 1.2% in 2009. What do you say to those detractors?
Economists are free to make up their mind. I think it was George Bernard Shaw who said, you can place every economist in the world end to end and you still wouldn't reach a conclusion. It's you don't set out to try and achieve consensus amongst economists. People have their own models, they have their own gut feels. We're saying that based on the available information, this is the best estimate. You see, we carry the risk. If we can't raise revenue and we have to then rush to the capital market to make good a shortage, the market will judge us harshly for that.